You're still paying for things designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Not long ago, these were smart purchases, responsible even, the kind of decisions that made you feel like you had your life together. But in 2026, the math has quietly flipped. The value is gone, while the price kept rising. And most people haven't noticed. That's the dangerous part. Because the system didn't collapse overnight. It shifted, slowly, quietly, until one day you're spending money out of habit, not logic. So let's walk through 12 things that are no longer worth your money in 2026, and more importantly, why. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. It starts with something almost everyone still defends: cable TV. At its peak, cable was simple: one bill, everything in one place: sports, movies, news. It felt efficient. Now, you're paying for bundles inside bundles, streaming platforms stacked on top of each other, add-ons, premium tiers, ads, even after paying. The average household is now spending more than they did during peak cable years, just spread across 5 or 6 subscriptions. And here's the twist: you're watching less, because choice exploded, attention didn't. The system works because it hides the total cost. $10 here, 15 there. It doesn't feel expensive until you add it up. And that pattern repeats. Gym memberships. The idea sounds good. Invest in your health. Stay consistent. But the industry runs on one simple truth: most people don't go. In 2026, usage data hasn't improved much. Roughly 70 to 80% of memberships go underused. Yet prices keep rising, especially for premium experiences. You're not paying for fitness. You're paying for the idea of becoming someone who works out regularly. And the system profits from that gap between intention and action. Next, extended warranties. They're still sold with the same pitch: peace of mind. But modern electronics are more reliable than ever. Failure rates have dropped. And when things do break, repair or replacement costs are often lower than the warranty itself. So why do retailers push them so aggressively? Because margins are massive. It's one of the highest profit items in the entire store. You're not buying protection. You're buying a statistically bad bet. Now let's zoom into something more subtle. Brand new smartphones every year. There was a time when upgrading made sense. Had big jumps in performance, camera quality, battery life. But in 2026, the curve has flattened. A 3-year-old phone still performs almost identically for everyday use. Messages, apps, video, even gaming. Yet people keep upgrading annually, paying premium prices for marginal improvements they barely notice. Why? Because the marketing shifted from function to identity. You're not buying a better device. You're buying the feeling of being current, and that feeling is expensive. Now here's where it gets more uncomfortable. Fast fashion. It feels cheap, accessible, disposable. But that's exactly the problem. Clothes are designed to degrade faster. Materials are thinner. Stitching is weaker. Trends move quicker, so you buy more often. What looks like saving money turns into a constant cycle of replacement. And over time, you spend far more than you would on fewer, better-made items. It's not about affordability, it's about frequency. Now let's talk about something people still see as a milestone: brand new cars. The moment you drive off the lot, you already know what happens: depreciation. But in 2026, it's more extreme than ever. Rapid tech updates, EV transitions, software upgrades. Cars are aging faster in market value, even if they function perfectly. You're paying a premium for new, in a market that punishes newness almost immediately. And financing makes it worse. Longer loan terms, higher interest rates, payments stretched over years. You don't own the car, the payment owns you. Now here's a quieter one: bottled water. It's convenient. It's everywhere. But the markup is absurd. In many places, bottled water costs hundreds, sometimes thousands, of times more than tap water, and in most developed areas, the quality difference is negligible. You're paying for packaging, logistics, branding, not the water itself, and once you see that, it becomes hard to justify. Let's shift to something digital again. Online courses, not all of them. Some are valuable, but the explosion of expert-led courses has created a strange economy where information is packaged, repackaged, and resold endlessly. The same knowledge, different branding, and often that knowledge is available for free or far cheaper elsewhere. The real product isn't education, it's positioning. You're buying confidence, not necessarily competence. Now here's where things start connecting. Food delivery apps. At first they felt revolutionary, convenience at your fingertips, but by 2026, the true cost is clearer. Service fees, delivery fees, surge pricing, tips. A meal that costs $10 at a restaurant easily becomes $18 or $22 by the time it reaches your door. You're not just paying for food, you're paying a premium for avoiding inconvenience. And if it becomes a habit, that premium compounds fast. Now consider this: luxury apartments with amenities, pools, gyms, co-working spaces, lounges. They look impressive. They justify higher rent. But most residents use only a fraction of these features. You're paying monthly for services you barely touch. It's the same pattern again. Sell the dream, charge for access, profit from underuse. Next, credit card, rewards chasing. On paper, it sounds smart. Points, cashback, travel perks. But here's the hidden mechanism. Spending increases when rewards are involved. Multiple studies show people spend more when using cards versus cash, and even more when chasing rewards thresholds. So yes, you might earn 2% back, but if your spending increases by 10% to get there, you lost. The system doesn't reward discipline, it rewards consumption. Now let's talk about something almost invisible: name brand groceries. In many categories, the difference between premium brands and store brands has shrunk dramatically. Same factories, similar ingredients, different packaging. Yet prices remain significantly higher. Why? Because trust, and once built, is hard to break. You're paying for familiarity, not necessarily quality. And finally, paid convenience everywhere. Priority boarding, faster checkout, skip the line passes, express services. Individually, they feel small, but together they reveal something bigger. Time has been turned into a product, and companies are monetizing impatience. The more you value speed, the more you pay, and the system quietly nudges you to feel rushed all the time. So you keep buying your time back, one small fee at a time. Now step back, look at all 12, different industries, different products, but the same underlying pattern. You're not being charged for the thing itself, you're being charged for emotion, convenience, identity, aspiration, fear, status, urgency, and those are much easier to price than actual value. That's why these things persist, not because they're worth it, but because they feel worth it. And that raises a harder question. If so much of modern spending is driven by perception instead of reality, how much of what we consider normal spending is quietly working against us? And more importantly, what else are we still paying for that stopped making sense a long time ago? And if you follow that question far enough, it starts to get uncomfortable. Because it's not just about the obvious things anymore. It's about defaults, auto renewals you forgot about, subscriptions that quietly increase, services that used to feel optional but now feel necessary. The system isn't built to make you stop and reconsider. Now, it's built to keep things frictionless, because friction is where thinking happens, and thinking is where spending slows down. So friction gets removed, one-click payments, saved cards, invisible renewals. Money leaves your account without ever fully entering your awareness. And that changes behavior in a very specific way. Spending stops feeling like a decision. It starts feeling like background noise. Now here's where the stakes rise. Because when enough of your spending becomes automatic, you lose clarity on what anything actually costs. Not individually, but collectively. You might question a $500 purchase, but you won't question 500 $1 decisions, even though they lead to the same place. That's how modern spending works. Not through big mistakes, but through small, repeated ones that never feel significant in the moment. And this is where most people get it wrong. They look for a single thing to cut, one big fix, one dramatic change. But the system isn't built around one big leak. It's built around dozens of tiny ones, each justified, each normalized, each easy to ignore, until you add them up. And when you do, the number doesn't look small anymore. It looks structural, like something designed that way, because it is. Now zoom out even further. We're living in a time where technology has made production cheaper, faster, and more efficient than ever. In theory, that should mean lower costs for consumers, more value for less money. But that's not what happened. Instead, the savings were redirected into packaging, into marketing, into creating layers between you and the actual product. So the price didn't just reflect the thing itself. It reflected everything built around it. And the more invisible those layers became, the easier they were to charge for. That's why so many of these not worth it anymore items still exist. Because they're not really selling the product. They're selling the story around the product. And stories are powerful. They shape perception. They justify cost. They make something feel necessary, even when it isn't. So the real shift in 2026 isn't just economic. It's psychological. The question isn't, can you afford this? It's, why does this feel worth it to you? And if you can't answer that clearly, there's a good chance you're paying for something that stopped making sense a long time ago. Not because you made a bad decision, but because the environment around you changed, and the habit didn't. And that's the part most people never update, their habits. They upgrade their phones, they upgrade their subscriptions, they upgrade their lifestyles, but they rarely upgrade their assumptions about what's valuable, about what's necessary, about what's actually worth the money. And until that changes, the list doesn't stop at 12. It keeps growing quietly, in the background, waiting for the moment you finally stop and ask a very simple question. Well, not how much does this cost, but what am I really paying for?